Hey guys, it's Melanie. Welcome back, or welcome if you are new. I hope you're having a fantastic day. In this video, I'm going to be sharing 3 more initial post-burn reviews from the Kringle Halloween 2025 Classic Black Jar Collection series. Earlier this morning, I shared 3 other reviews from this phase 1 launch that is going to be happening on August 1st at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which means that for those of us on the West Coast, those candles are actually going live July 31st at 9:01 p.m. So this is, I guess you could say, an overnight launch. And as I mentioned in the video that I shared this morning, I do anticipate that there will definitely be some fragrances in this launch that will sell out. I am only sharing my initial post-burn reviews for the 12 new fragrances, but I have reviewed a lot of the previous Kringle Candle Halloween jars in the past. So if you check out my Kringle Candle playlist, you might find some of the other fragrances that are returning over in that playlist. So anyway, in this morning's video, I shared my initial reviews of Mummy Marshmallow, Pumpkinhead, and Killer Clown. And in this video, we're going to be discussing Abduction, Cabin in the Woods, and Chest of Chaos. Tomorrow in the morning, I will share 3 more of the fragrances, and then in the afternoon, I will review the last trio of candles. So by the end of day Monday, you will have all of my initial post-burn reviews. I mentioned in this morning's video that unless something drastically changes, I'm just going to let these be the official reviews for Halloween this year. Obviously, I'm going to continue to burn them. If anything goes sideways in terms of the burn, so the wick stud out or the wax gets gross or just, whatever happens, I will update you guys in a video about that, but I wanted you to have the initial information, at least for the launch, so that you could make as informed a decision as possible for what you want to pick up from this phase 1 launch here. There will be other Halloween collections launching from Kringle, so just a little heads up on that. As soon as I am able to share the information, I will do that. But yeah, anyway, let's dig into these 3 candles here. I'll go ahead and link where you can purchase Kringle Candle at the very top of the description box. My discount code is Melanie15, and if you don't have any rewards to apply when the launch happens, you can use my discount code and save yourself a little bit of extra money on these. So it's just Melanie15, and you just enter that in the coupon section when you go to checkout. Anyway, let's go ahead and dig in, you guys. Again, if you're not already subscribed, make sure you do that, because that way you'll be notified of all of these uploads that are coming down the pipeline here for subsequent Halloween collections. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's go ahead and start by reading through the top, middle, and base notes of Abduction. By the way, I like the label on this one a lot. It kind of reminds me of when I used to watch the X-Files in the 90s. I always had a really hard time with that TV show. It usually scared the crap out of me, and I really had no business watching it. But in terms of like watching scary movies or TV shows, the X-Files, and I would say also Unsolved Mysteries, they were definitely my favorite, and as like creepy as I would normally get. So I like that this kind of takes me back to my teenage years here in the 90s. But all right, let's go ahead and read through these notes. At the top, we have citrus and greens. For the mid notes, we have herbal and wood. And then at the base, we have moss and spiced resin. This fragrance is kind of an interesting one because on cold sniff, I did not care for this. Something about it smelled a little bit funky, a little bit, I don't know, kind of sour, I guess, in a way. I got a little bit of this like, almost like stomach bile type of vibe, which really not my jam. But I have to tell you, this is one where I feel like the fragrance makes so much more sense and it's so much more enjoyable when I light it up. What's funny is that once the candle is extinguished and I stick my nose just into the wax once it's hardened, it goes back to like being funky to my nose again. But as soon as I light it, it really kind of transforms into something that, like I said, is way more enjoyable than the cold sniff. So let's dig through these notes here. Do I smell the top notes of citrus and green? I do think there is a very faint hint of citrus in this fragrance. I couldn't even tell you if it was like grapefruit or orange or lemon. I don't think it's lime. I definitely don't think it's lime, but there is some kind of like a citrusy tang, which I think is what is giving me that like sour note on cold sniff, but it just smells a lot better when it's burning. There is an interesting green note to this one, which I think the green is kind of blending into the moss for me here at the base. It's not an overly like earthy mossy smell. It's more of a fresh, like bright green mossiness. So it's not necessarily like a green grass that you're smelling. It's not a green leafy or a green stem type of note. It really is that like fresh moss. The herbal, I don't know that I would really describe this as an herbal fragrance. So I'm just gonna kind of leave that note alone. But I do think there is a nice lighter woodiness in this one. It's not heavy like a mahogany. It's kind of a lighter wood note, more along the lines of like a sandalwood or like a driftwood type of woodiness versus like a heavy oak or a heavy mahogany or teak type of smell. So really a nice wood component here for sure. But I think what really makes this one special is that spiced resin. It does really have this unique resinous quality to it. It's a sweet resinous quality. There's something about this fragrance that definitely has sweetness to it. And I really think it's coming from the resin note here. There's also a unique, almost I would say borderline powdery aspect to this fragrance. And also at the same time, a little bit of an interesting creaminess, I guess you could say. And these are not things that I noticed on cold sniff. They are just what I noticed after I actually had a flame to the wax. This really is one of those fragrances where once you light this up, it is a different experience from the cold sniff. I think that makes a fragrance like this very interesting and unique. And I was pleasantly surprised by this one. Honestly, I was kind of dreading burning it because that, I don't know, something about it just kind of smelled sour and funky on cold sniff, and whatever they did here is kind of magical for this one, because it really does have a completely different post-burn experience from my cold sniff impression. So yeah, it's an interesting fragrance. I do think that a lot of people might really actually enjoy this one. But just prepare yourself for the fragrance. At least if our noses are similar, prepare yourself to have a very different reaction from the cold sniff to the post-burn potentially. So if we normally like a lot of the same fragrances, I would say put this one on the list. It is a cool label, and it is a fragrance that I think is just a really unique experience. And something that, you know, I've never quite smelled before. With a lot of these candles, people have kind of asked, like, is there anything else that you could compare it to? And with a couple of them, you know, on cold sniff, I was able to kind of make some comparisons just in my head. But for a lot of these, they are just very unique blends that I really haven't seen anywhere else. So for better, for worse, when it comes to these Halloween candles, sometimes you just have to take a chance on them and see, you know, what you think about them. It is hard because obviously Kringle is predominantly sold online, and not being able to stick your nose into a candle first. So having to do a blind buy that's tough, because obviously, you know, these are not the most inexpensive candles out there. But I will say, typically, most of the people that really lean into the Kringle Halloween lineup, I think what they appreciate is that with each of these candles, they're getting a very unique experience, something that they haven't really experienced anywhere else. In terms of the strength and throw on this one, I would give the strength about an 8, and I would give the throw probably right around a 7. It's a very noticeable, very potent fragrance for, you know, this 2-wick size here. It's not subtle. So if you're looking for subtlety, I wouldn't say try this. I do think that it had a good oomph to it that then also allowed it to travel pretty far. You know, with this being in the master bedroom, it filled that room very easily. It also started to travel into our master bathroom. It started to travel out towards the upstairs hallway. And, you know, our master bedroom is a more enclosed space. So this particular fragrance did have enough oomph behind it to be able to travel pretty far for being in a more enclosed area. So the potency for this one is there. Let's go ahead and quickly take a look at the wicks. With all of these candles, I did not trim the wicks after the latest burn so that you guys could see what they look like. Now, this one here, you're gonna see some wax around the edge here. That is because I picked this up and moved it into this room before the wax had hardened, so some of that wax splashed up. But you can see here that you definitely are dealing with some carbon balls or mushroom tops at the top of these wicks here. You're going to want to trim that off each burn, obviously. I will say, when you first get your Kringle candles, they are going to look like they have ridiculously long wicks. Don't trim them. If you're newer to Kringle candle, just light them up for that first initial burn. They will self-level. And then for the subsequent burns, all you're going to need to do is just nip that little bit off the top there. I actually have cuticle scissors that I use for that because they are a slightly more delicate scissor than just my, like, you know, regular scissors that I keep in the kitchen. So yeah, the cuticle scissors work great. But yeah, just nip that off and you are gonna be good to go for any subsequent burns. Yeah, this was a pleasant surprise for me. I will say I was not expecting to even remotely enjoy this one, but now that I've been burning it for a little while, it's very different from cold sniff to post burn. So I'm gonna keep burning this one. I think it's kind of a nice, enjoyable fragrance overall. And like I said, it's very unique. So if you think this one is going to be up your alley, I would definitely suggest adding it to the cart. All right, next, let's move on to Cabin in the Woods. I'm so excited to share my thoughts on Cabin in the Woods because this is kind of what Skull and Sonnet was for me last year in this Kringle Halloween collection. It has a really beautiful perfumey quality where it honestly smells like something that I would love to wear as a perfume or a body mist. This particular fragrance I think is perfectly unisex. So I don't think it's too masculine. I don't think it's too feminine. It is literally perfectly in the middle, but it is a more conceptual, more perfumey type of fragrance. So if that is not your vibe, you're gonna wanna skip this one. But again, if you were a fan of Skull and Sonnet last year, this one is gonna be in the same perfumey family. And it is definitely one of my favorites from this launch here. It has two kind of unique fragrance notes that I really haven't seen Kringle do a ton with in the past. So we've got agarwood in here as well as saffron. And those two particular notes, turns out I really like them a lot. So let's go ahead and dig in first with going through the top, middle, and base notes. I'll tell you what my nose mostly detects in this one. I don't have a perfume that I own that is comparable to this. So, you know, I would love to recommend something, but I don't have anything in my collection right now, but I'm definitely going to be on the lookout for some of these notes here when I'm on the hunt for perfumes in the future, because turns out I think I really like them. All right, so at the top we have golden saffron. The mid notes are rose, black truffle, and crocus flower. At the base, we have patchouli, vanilla, agarwood, and oak moss. Once again, I'm gonna say, don't be scared off by the patchouli. I feel like that's always one of those notes where as soon as people hear it, they're like, absolutely not, goodbye, they check out. This is not earthy patchouli. This is not that dirty patchouli. This is a really beautiful, light, perfumey patchouli, but nonetheless, it is patchouli. So if you don't like that, skip it. It is very noticeable in this fragrance, but it's a really pretty patchouli for what it's worth. All right, let's start with that saffron. If you are not familiar with saffron, it kind of smells a little sweet, a little spicy, slightly floral. The sweetness that I smell in saffron kind of reminds me a little bit of honey. It definitely does have some like natural sweetness to it, and to my nose it does lean more so honey than it does just like a cane sugar or a molasses or, you know, like a maple type of sweetness. I really like honey, so I think that that's probably why I am drawn to this saffron note here. Now when it comes to the mid notes, I do smell some rose in here, but this is not a rose forward fragrance. You're going to detect the rose, but it's not going to translate the way that rose usually does. It has the nice perfuminess of rose, but it doesn't smell super old-fashioned. It doesn't smell like an old rose or a dried rose. It is more of like a more modern, fresh, lighter take on rose, but it's really pretty. I don't get much in the way of truffle or crocus flower, to be perfectly honest, but I guess in my defense, I've never really smelled crocus flower in other perfumes either, or other candles. So I don't know, maybe it's there, but it's not anything that is, you know, super obvious to me. But it's really the base where I think this fragrance shines. It's that saffron at the top and the patchouli, vanilla, agarwood, and oak moss at the base that I think are kind of the star in this fragrance, with that rose just kind of floating lightly in the background. So again, the patchouli is a really pretty, perfumey, like it's a beautiful patchouli. I know I'm not going to convince those of you that just don't like it, period, and I'm not trying to do that, but if you like the more perfumey patchouli, that is the one that you're getting here. It is not like the earthy patchouli that you've gotten in some of these other Halloween fragrances in the past. It's a pretty fragrance. I do think there is a nice, just slightly sweet vanilla in this fragrance. It's more so a vanilla bean than a French vanilla. Thankfully, I hate French vanilla. Oh, don't love that. But it is more of that like slightly sweet vanilla bean. And it just, I think, adds a little bit of softness to the fragrance overall. The agarwood. Okay, if you have never smelled this, this particular wood note smells slightly spicy. It also has a little bit of earthiness to it. It's a little musky, but also just a little bit sweet. It's different from a lot of other wood notes. I think the fact that it has that sweetness to it makes it a little bit different. It almost smells just a little bit resinous in a way, but it's just a very interesting note. Also, the oak moss in here is really lovely, and again adds just another layer of depth to the fragrance overall. Again, this is something that is definitely more perfumey in its presentation. I don't think this is a creepy or scary fragrance. In fact, I think this is a beautiful fragrance. It doesn't really match the label, but it is something that when I'm burning it, like, I just love it. This is one where I might just kind of nurse it along. It is going to be the perfect bedroom fragrance for the fall months. And so I'm probably gonna pop this up in the master bedroom here. I might turn the label around because, to be perfectly honest, I am someone who, you know, when I watch a creepy TV show or a creepy movie, it's emblazoned into my brain, and then my mind, for whatever reason, decides to make nightmare fuel out of that, and I will have nightmares for days. But I can turn this label around and just enjoy a really beautiful fragrance, because that is what this is. I love this scent. If you like that skull and sonnet vibe last year, you're really gonna like the vibe of this one this year. There's a couple of fragrances that definitely have this perfumey vibe to them, and this is one of them here for sure. Strength and throw are solid on this one. Strength is a solid 8. Throw is probably more of like a 7. It will travel. This is one that I have burned both upstairs as well as downstairs, and wherever I put it, it is potent enough to be quite noticeable. So if you're looking for a fragrance that has some good oomph to it, this one is definitely going to give that to you. In terms of the wicks here, let's go ahead and take a look at those. Some carbon balls will form at the top here with this one. By the way, yeah, this is another one where I picked it up while it was still liquefied and was moving it around. So that's why you're seeing that wax around the edge here. My bad. But yeah, so you can see you're definitely going to want to trim these wicks, but you don't need to get too aggressive with the trimming. Yeah. Nice, beautiful burn on this one. Zero complaints. In fact, it's one that I'm tempted to order a backup of. It's just a really lovely fragrance. If this one doesn't sell out for whatever reason, I will get more of this because it is so beautiful. If it didn't have this label, I mean, it would be probably a staple for most of the year for me. But yeah, in terms of that label, that's a creepy monster there. I don't know if that's like a bog witch or something, but she's definitely gonna come and get you, so watch out. All right, let's move on to the last fragrance here, which is gonna be Chest of Chaos. And if you are into Cabin in the Woods, because of the way that I explained this one, you might also be into Chest of Chaos. They are different fragrances, but kind of in the same family, so let's dig in. Chest of Chaos is definitely another more perfumey option when it comes to the Halloween lineup this year. I really like this one, and if you typically, again, like these more perfumey fragrances from Kringle, you might well enjoy this one. I know that I do, and it's another one of the scents that for me, if this is available after the initial launch and it kind of sticks around for a little while, I could definitely see myself repurchasing more of this and just, you know, not even really using it as a Halloween candle per se, just as a really beautiful like bedroom or bathroom type of fragrance. I really like the more perfumey fragrances in those areas of the house. The more common areas, I tend to favor more fruity or gourmand options because I feel like they're a little bit more universal. But these perfumey scents, I think, are fantastic in the bedroom. And this is another one that's just incredibly well done. So the top notes for Chest of Chaos are warm spices and cypress. I love the cypress in here. We have cypress trees in the front of our house on either side of the front door, and they smell incredibly beautiful. And I really smell that cypress in here. It smells really fresh. It's beautiful. The mid notes are kind of interesting because they are peach and vanilla. At the base, we have tonka bean, I'm probably gonna say this wrong, armoise. I'm gonna go with armoise. It's actually just mugwort, so let's call it mugwort. And then we also have patchouli. Again, this is not the scary patchouli, this is the really pretty patchouli. So, going back to the top when it comes to these warm spices. Honestly, I don't think of this as an overly spicy fragrance. There is a little bit of like a fall spice component here, but nothing over the top. And certainly not to the point where I would consider this a spicy scent, if that makes sense. There's a little bit of spice in the background, but really it's much more of that cypress that is present at the top here. There is a little interesting hint of peach and an interesting hint of vanilla, which is mentioned in those mid notes. It kind of comes across as like a little bit of like a peaches and cream type note. And it just adds some sweetness. It kind of serves to break up a little bit of the woodiness from the cypress in here. But it's like you don't stick your nose in this one and think like, yes, there's just like a ton of peach here or anything like that. It's not that type of fragrance, but there is definitely some peach and some vanilla creaminess floating in the background for sure. Now at the base, we have tonka bean, the mugwort, and that patchouli. The tonka that's in here is really beautiful. It adds a lot of depth to this fragrance. Tonka tonka to my nose always smells kind of like almost like an unsweetened, deeper vanilla type of note. I really like tonka bean, and the tonka in here I think is perfectly executed. I love that mugwort note. If you are not familiar, mugwort can kind of smell different depending on your nose, basically. Some people think it smells really fresh. Some people thinks that it smells kind of sweet or green. Some people think that it smells a little herbal, kind of like a mix between maybe like a sage, a rosemary. Some people smell licorice. For me, I feel like I am definitely getting a little bit of a green aspect from the mugwort, but it's also coming across as slightly sweet at the same time. So it's almost a sweet green type note that I'm getting from that mugwort. It doesn't smell cool to my nose. It actually smells warm and kind of cozy and inviting, if that makes sense. But yeah, I really like that mugwort note. And again, the patchouli here is a really pretty perfumey patchouli that just lends to maybe making this scent smell maybe slightly more masculine than Cabin in the Woods, but not much more masculine. It really is still right in the middle of kind of being a perfect unisex type of option. So if you are at all into the labels for these two, and I mean specifically the Chest of Chaos and the Cabin in the Woods, if you like the labels and you're looking for those perfumey fragrances, I feel like these two are probably the best option from this lineup for that particular fragrance profile. So for sure, put them on your list. The strength and throw of this one is really good. The strength is it's a little lighter than Cabin in the Woods. I would put it probably at more of a 7. The throw is probably, in line with Cabin in the Woods, and that's also roughly about a 7. Absolutely fills the immediate area where I'm burning it, and it is potent enough to, travel outside of that immediate area. Good solid burn on pretty much all 3 of these that I'm sharing in this video here. I don't have any concerns about them dudding out. The strength and throw are what I'm used to when it comes to these 2-wick tumblers from Kringle. So no complaints at all there. I think they are all 3 really kind of interesting and unique fragrances. I can't compare them really to anything else that I've smelled in the past. I always like being able to give a comparison, but yeah, for the most part, I don't really have anything to compare them to. They are just their own unique thing. And, I wish there was smell-o-vision, because obviously, again, sometimes it's hard to make a decision on a blind buy like this. But once again, if you like those perfumey scents, I think you're really gonna like this one. I've had no issues with the burn, just like I haven't with all of the others. So let me just very quickly show you the wicks on this one. They really don't form huge mushroom tops, as you can see, but you are gonna wanna just, clip those tips off there, and then you can move on with any subsequent burns. So yeah, having a great experience with all 3 of these. So if you are interested in them, again, they are launching kind of early in the morning if you're on the East Coast, so 12:01 a.m. August 1st, and then those of us on the West Coast, July 31st at 9:01 p.m. So Let me know if you have any questions. I really appreciate you guys being here. I will see you tomorrow for the remaining 6 reviews. Again, I will divide it into 2 videos, and then that completes the Halloween classic jar review extravaganza lineup for Halloween 2025. Like I said, there is more Halloween coming, so stay tuned. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. If you found this video helpful, give it a big fat thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Toodaloo.